Hello, whistlers everywhere. So today's tune is going to be Planxty Irwin. It's a lovely Carolan tune composed by the Irish harper. Um, he composed a lot of different Planxties, and Planxties were like dedication tunes. So this was Planxty Irwin, so it was dedicated to a Mr. Irwin. I can't remember his first name, to be honest with you, but as many of the Planxties are, they are dedicated tunes to patrons who supported Turlough Carolan during his harping days many years ago. So, what I'm going to do to start off with, I'm going to play the tune as it's written, completely unornamented. And with a lot of Carolan tunes, there's not a whole lot of scope to do too much in the way of ornamentation. Um, the idea behind adding a few little bits and pieces, some trills and a few other little bits, are to enhance the basic tune, but the tune stands up itself, as you'll hear, just as a melody on its own. And if you like playing it without any ornamentation whatsoever, then I suggest you do so, because this is a kind of tune that doesn't really need too much in the way of fancying up. It's a lovely little waltz of a tune written in 3/4, and it just sounds great as it is. So what I'll do is I'll play the tune straight, and then we can talk about maybe looking at how we can dress it up just a little bit, just to make it a little bit more interesting. There are lots and lots of variations you can do, but I don't want to go into too many of those. And again, we want to sort of stay within pretty much the structure of the piece. So here we go, Planxty Irwin. So I'm going to do it at this speed. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So as you can see, I've pretty much stuck to the tune as it's written. And this is the version closest to the one that I've been playing for many years. This is a very firm favourite that I play with a good harpist friend of mine. And over the past 20 odd years, we've been travelling up and down the country playing at weddings and other social events. And Planxty Irwin has always been a firm favourite on our set list. So we've played this so many times, I've probably lost count. But it's still love the tune, and I still really enjoy playing it. So that was Planxty Irwin without any real ornamentation. So just a word of how I'm playing it, and I would suggest you play it a similar kind of way to start with. If you noticed, I am keeping the tonguing to a minimum. and I'm only tonguing the first note when I take an inward breath. So, for instance, the opening section. And then we play the high D to repeat and play each section twice. So the form on it is basically A section twice, B section twice, and then round you go again. So in its most basic form, I think it sounds lovely as it is. I wouldn't want to dress it up too much in terms of putting loads of ornaments and really making it something that it was never intended to be. So with this tune, it's definitely a case of keep it simple and don't overly make it complicated by adding tons of ornamentation. I do add a few cuts for note separation, but I also add a few cuts just to bring out certain notes. So what I'll do is I'll deal with the first part and show you where I put a few little cuts and a few little ornaments in as well. So if we start with the first section, I'll play it straight and then I'll play it with a couple of little ornaments and show you what I did and where I did what I did. So we've got up onto the last measure on the first line. I've not played the D because the D is another point where we start the next phrase. So again, think of it in terms of phrasing. So the first phrase is what we just played. And then the second phrase. So it's like musical punctuation, if you like. The phrases are small sentences. So what I did, put a little cut on that G. Now you don't have to do that. Sounds nice without it, but if you want to, now I like to put a cut on that G in the second measure too. So, and then the third measure. I don't really do anything there. I don't think it needs it. So next measure. Again, keeping it straight. So all I've done really is just add a couple of cuts, and I think that's all it needs. Again, we don't want to overextend on the ornamentation because it will just turn it into something which it isn't and shouldn't be. So the next phrase. Again, I'm cutting the G at the beginning and the G in the second bar on the second line. And then I'm just playing the rest as it's written. And so to finish off the phrase, and then we put a little cut on that last G. So one little thing which I like to do, and you can do it if you like the sound of it, is to put a little twiddle. I can't think of a technical word for it, but it's not a roll. It's so it goes. Now, it's not a rhythmic device, it's a melodic device, and a lot of ornamentation in Irish music is for rhythm. But this is different because this isn't strictly an Irish jig or a reel, and therefore we don't really apply the same kind of ornaments. Well, we can do, but I always think it sounds better to put more kind of Baroque style music, because Caroline was very much influenced by the Baroque music of the time. And so I think it's more in keeping to add sort of more Baroque kind of little embellishments to the notes. So all I've done at the end there, so if I play um, the second line from the D in the first line, because that's where the phrase starts, so it goes. Yeah. And all I'm doing is, it's a little bit like a turn. So it's going G, A, G, F, G. So let me show you that again. And you might want to, on the last note, just put a little bit of finger vibrato. Just gives it a nice kind of feel. And again, what I did was I did a little slide from the low F sharp up to the G at the end there. So and then to go back and repeat. So let's play the first part, the A part, through twice, nice and steady, with just those couple of little things which I've added, those little twiddles. Okay, the only other thing that I like to do put sometimes in is a little trill on the F sharp. So I don't suggest you do it on every one, because otherwise it just sounds a little bit predictable and a bit cluttered. So what we can do is on the first one, which is very kind of like in keeping with the Baroque sort of style. And all I'm going is, you can do a short one, or you can make it a little bit longer. And when I say longer, you're not lengthening the rhythm of the note at all. All you're doing is you're adding more ups and downs on the trills. So the trill, or the shake as it's sometimes called, should be even and not sound like, yep, not sound uneven. So now I wouldn't do that every single time because it's a bit overkill, but occasionally, just to add a little bit of a kind of Baroque flair, it's nice to add that little trill. So we could maybe play it straight the first time and then add that little trill the second time. So we could go. and that at the end of that. So I really wouldn't do too much in the way of overly ornamenting this music. It sounds great, it's a lovely tune, and the ornaments should only enhance the basic melody. They shouldn't get in the way, and you don't want to fancify it up too much. I mean, there are things that I do as variations on this, which I'll show you after we've done the B part. I'll just throw in a few variations what I do, but again, that's just sort of to do for my own enjoyment and just to break the tune up a little bit. So if I'm playing it maybe 3 or 4, 5 or 6 times even, depending on the situation, just to make it interesting, I might vary up and add certain little passing notes, which I can talk about later on when I talk about the variations that you can do. But for now, it's a lovely tune, doesn't need to be overly complex. Okay, so the B part, let's have a look at that now. So like the A part, at first I'm just going to play it through straight without any ornaments other than separating the notes, which are the same, using cuts. So. So again, we can add a couple of little cuts on the G, so we can go. But I'd be inclined to just play that. So what I'm doing there is going straight from the D, the last note on the second line, up to the G. Now that's D is where the phrase begins. It doesn't start on the first note, it starts on the last note of the second line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate, rather than just cut, I'm going to do the first cut and then I'm going to tap the second G. So it's going to go like this. And again. You can cut them both. But just for a bit of variety, I'm going to tap that first G in the second bar. And then let's carry on. Again, we're separating the A on the end of the third bar and the A at the beginning of the first bar with cuts. So let's go up to there. Yeah. Again. Now we're going all the way up to the high B. So again, separating the two B's with a cut. So cut with a C sharp. You can tap it if you want. I prefer the cut because it gives it, to me, it gives it a cleaner definition. So So let's go from the last note on the at the end of the second line to the end of the third line. So here's the count: 1, 2. So again, we can dress things up with a few little trills. So I'm trilling that F sharp in the second to last bar on the third line. So if I add that, now again, if you like that effect of the trill, it's nice to add for a little bit of variation, but again, I wouldn't do it every single time because then it's not a variation, then it just becomes part of the tune and predictable. So like I said right at the beginning, this tune doesn't need a lot of messing about with, for want of a better word. It's a lovely tune, stands up in its own right. So these are just little things which may enhance it as a player and as a listener if you're playing it through a few different times. So you could always add that little trill on that bit, so it'd go. Okay, so we're on for the very last part, and again, repetition. So here we go. You can add the trill there again if you want, or if you don't feel you need to, just leave it as it is. And there we had that little turn. And then we go up to the B in the first, sorry, the D in the first time bar, and then repeat it all again. So let me just play it through for you the second time with those few little bits and pieces that we've added in terms of cuts and maybe a trill or two. And then we go up to the D to go back to the beginning of that third line. And then to finish it, excuse me, we just play the G. I like to just do a little slide from the F sharp up to the G and just put some vibrato on the end. Okay, so that's pretty much it for Planxty Irwin in terms of ornamentation. As I said, I do put a few little variations in which I'm going to talk about next. If you like them, use them, or if you feel they're not appropriate for you, then that's absolutely fine. I will not be crushed and offended, I promise you. Okay, so let's have a look now at a few little variations we can put into this tune. So variations, and the first variation I put in is at the end of the first, or rather the second phrase. So I'm going to play it as it is, and then I'm going to show you the little variation that I put in. It's just basically going up a scale, and it's very easy to do. So all I did there was, on the last bit, so I go to the F, so rather than playing, I just fill it in with eighth notes. So, which is quite a nice little variation, gives it a bit of interest. So let me play the whole of that first phrase again, and I'll play it plain first, and then second time I'll put the variation in. Now with that variation, same thing. Now what you might do is play it the first time round as written, and then the second time you could put that little yeah, I don't know. It's a nice little variation, and it's not out of keeping with with the period and the composition. That's about it in terms of variations. We'll have a look at the B part. So let's have a look at the B part variations. So again, nothing too drastic, just fairly simple and within keeping. So what I might do is add a roll. So I went, instead of going, just changing it slightly. So I'm doing a long roll on the A and then playing the B and the A after it as eighth notes. So again. So the next bit, we're all the way up to the high B. So I could put long rolls on that. Or you could put the trill. Now, if you wanted, you could trill the A and the F. But to me, yeah, I think that's maybe overdoing it a little bit. So choose which note. You could do one, do the A the first time and do the F sharp the second time. So let's have a look at that first line of the B section. Now with those little variations. Or we could do this. Put a long roll on the F sharp. And then at the end, just to finish. Right, those are my little variations that I like to do sometimes. Again, it's the kind of tune which less is more, very much so on this tune. So yeah, keep your variations tasteful and in keeping with the period that this piece was written in. and have fun playing it. It's a lovely tune, and as I said, you play it exactly the same without any ornamentation, and it sounds wonderful because it's just in the composition. You know, Caroline wrote some wonderfully evocative pieces of music, and this is one of them. Okay, folks, so I'll just to finish with, I'll play through the version that I've got with some variation. I'll play it through the simple version, and then I'll add a few little variations to finish with. So, Planxty Irwin. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So that's my version of Planxty Irwin. A few little variations that you may want to try. But even if you want to play the tune exactly as it's written, it's a beautiful tune. Sometimes things don't need anything extra. These are just variations should you want to try them out. So I've hoped you've enjoyed this tune breakdown. There's going to be quite a few more coming up in the near future. If you've enjoyed this video and you found it useful, if you could subscribe to my Whistleblowers channel, if you would like the page, and if you could leave any comments on any further or future tune breakdowns or any issues on technique or whistle in general, it'd be good to hear from you. So thank you for watching, and I hope again you found this useful, and take care all, and see you soon. Bye bye for now, folks.